Hi, today we're going to be talking about threats of the internet and how the impact of threats on the internet and cybersecurity and preventative measures could impact uh, a wide variety of consumers and corporations today. So first off, we'll talk about the introduction. So what are cyber threats exactly? The rising technological revolution has brought many changes to the everyday living for many people, especially in first world countries. As new technology is introduced into our society, our lives seem to get presumably easier and more efficient. While many different forms of technology exist, one of the greatest breakthroughs was the creation of the internet. With over half the world's population having access to the internet has drastically changed the social and economic behaviors of the world. For many, the internet may seem like a blessing with applications such as Facebook for social media, YouTube for online entertainment, and Google for a search engine. However, there are a multitude of severe risks that also reside on the internet that not many people are aware of. One of these risks is internet scamming and theft with the utilization of different methods. When the when there are more users on the internet, there are more targets for these scammers, and as the internet grows, the scamming becomes even more prevalent. So how big is internet scamming and theft? The role of internet in today's developed society becomes increasingly more prevalent every day. As a result, users are storing a great amount of important private information on the internet. This private information includes photos, important work and personal documents, and even banking and credit card information. For some people, a great majority of their valuables and information will reside on the internet. With how much the users trust the internet with their privacy and safety, it is crucial that the internet remains a safe and secure environment for users. However, there are many threats on the internet that people often dismiss. The most common threat is internet scams and theft. In 2018, Australia had one of the highest rates of internet scam activity. And according to the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, uh, over 100,000 reports for internet scamming had been reported within the first 9 months of 2018, as seen by the graphic here. And within these reports, $89 million was lost due to scams. According to a graphic by ACCC, the most dangerous scams are investment scams and romance related scams, taking up a great majority of the internet scams that happened throughout the first 9 months of 2018. Both make up nearly $55 million worth of the money lost this year to scams in Australia. Seems that the scammers attempt to take advantage of important values and use it to gain access to the victim's information. One of the main methods of scamming is hacking. With the growth of the internet, users are more interconnected with one another more than ever. Through the internet alone, one can find almost any information about anyone with little effort. Even private information that users consider protected can be at risk of being hacked at any point. According to Revision Legal, 115 large-scale cyber attacks took place in the month of January 2018 alone. While most hacking attempts target larger corporations, average users can easily be affected regardless. An example of this is on January 8, 2018, a group of hackers hacked into the record system of Health Southeast RHF in Norway. 2.9 million patients had their medical records compromised within minutes. This cyber attack affected more than half of Norway's 5.2 million inhabitants. And even though this hacking was a result of poor security systems, many innocent citizens were impacted. One of the main takeaways of this scenario was that patients had no part in being able to prevent the hacking, yet they were victims. So how can people prevent hacking? The main thing is, as a corporation, they must take responsibility to protect the private information of users that have entrusted them with the corporation. In the case of Health Southeast RHF, corporate managers put little effort in doing so. And as the internet develops over time, more hacking methods will be introduced. Therefore, it is the duty of the corporations to update their systems regularly and take preventative measures. For consumers, they should be careful in entrusting too much information with these corporations. One of them would be to don't download suspicious programs or visit suspicious links. Another method of scamming is identity theft. Identity theft has been an issue of this generation for many years. As most identity recognition relies on a simple PIN code or password system, it is much simpler to disguise one as another person for ill intent. Many consumers think that a personal password is enough to keep them safe from any threat. However, a single sequence of letters is much easier to replicate than any biometric of the actual person. Often the target victims of identity theft are younger children who lack experience with handling sensitive information. Over 1 million children in the US were victims of identity theft in the year of 2017. This cost families $540 million in out-of-pocket expenses. Another more threatening fact is that victims often take over 3 months to recognize their identity as being compromised. And about 16% of users reported that they didn't even find out for another 3 years. So this graphic shows that 3 million identity theft reports were reported every year in the US since 2014. That the threats lie not in the number of reported cases. Because even though the number of reported cases is very high, what really remains an issue is that identity theft in general is a very scary thing to have happen to users because of how impactful it is and how much they can lose from it. So here's some methods that users can take to prevent identity theft. While not for users of the internet, a few basic methods can be used. According to Identity Force, they recommend changing passwords for important accounts regularly. Another thing is to be cautious when putting personal information on social media or other public information or other public forums. And lastly, check banking and credit accounts regularly to spot fraudulent activity. Conclusion: what can you do as a consumer to prevent internet scamming and theft? The most important part of not being a victim is not letting yourself become a victim. While hackers and identity thefts are usually targeting victims who are weaker and do not take too much consideration in preventing these, it makes it easier for people who do know about them to take preventative measures and not become a victim. Utilize the tips that were given in this presentation. And once targeted by these scams, understand that it's hard to take back. So preventative measure is what you should do as a consumer. And lastly, be careful with suspicious activity on the internet.